1943, my father's father, Melvin, who I know as Pop and will refer to as such, started the Dodge dealership in Savannah called Karp Motors. My last name is Karp. And he was a very great salesman and had a magnetic personality, so that when well, he was like a big fisherman, and so he was very slow and patient about things, and he had this wit about him where, you know, he would tell you these jokes where, you know, the fish was this big, but then he would kind of wink at you with this smile where you just felt like, I don't know, you were both in on all the secrets in the world, and he was a great guy, and so people would come from like hundreds of miles to buy cars from my grandfather. Even if they wanted a Chevrolet, they would ask him to buy the Chevrolet, and then they would buy the Chevrolet from him, you know, because he was pretty honest, and you don't always get that in a car dealer, right? So I grew up in this dealership with my brother. My mom would always drop us off at the dealership when she was going to go run errands, and we would run around the rows and rows of cars and you know, go talk to our favorite employees and try and bum $1 for chocolate and Cokes, and run upstairs and play hangman in the conference room. And you know, I just always thought that I had this sense of entitlement as a really young kid, and I thought I was going to grow up and run this place with my brother and you know, spend my life there. It was a very special place for me. And so it didn't really work out that way. So my grandfather had some heart problems, and often he would have these heart attacks where he would go to the University of Pennsylvania. There's a hospital there where he was treated, and he had a very bad one when my father was 15, and the city of Savannah actually gave my father, they granted him his license early so that he could run the business, because he was the oldest son, and so he kind of sacrificed his youth to run this business, and took it over and grew up with this responsibility. Let's see. So my father has 2 siblings, and a brother and a sister, and neither one of them really were putting time into the dealership for various reasons. And my grandmother, my dad's mom, is kind of this typical Southern belle. You know, she's beautiful, she's a family person, and business was never supposed to be her role in the family, and so, you know, she was not very hands-on with the business. And so when my grandfather did pass away, he left 51% of the business to Annette, my grandmother, and split the other 49% amongst the 3 siblings. And so one day I went into Karp Motors, and I went into my dad's office, which had been his dad's office, and my grandmother was there, and there was stuff all over the place, my dad's jackets and stuff, and she was packing it up. And I was 12 years old, and I was like, "What are you doing? You know, where's my dad?" And she's like, "Well, this isn't your dad's office anymore, and in fact, your dad doesn't work here anymore." And I was like, "Well, you know, what do you mean?" She was like, "Well, maybe you should talk to your parents about it." And so I had no idea what was happening. And so I went back to the car where my mom was waiting for me, and I told her that this had happened, and my mom just starts bawling. You know, we live like 3 blocks away, and my mom could barely drive home, and she won't talk to me and tell me what's going on. And so we get home, and finally, like, I go up to my room, and I'm just really confused, and like, what could this be about, and is my dad even okay? Because my mom was like hysterical. And then she finally comes to the steps and summons me down and explains to me that they've sold the business, and that they didn't ask my dad if this is kind of like Stephen's story. So we're different people though. So they'd sold the business and hadn't asked my dad what he wanted to do, and I could not understand why that was, since he'd been the one who had been running the business for like decades. And so this hurt us a lot. I mean, we grew up, you know, I grew up and we had all this money from the dealership, and my dad had chronic back problems, and he had major surgeries, and was debilitated, and in fact is on disability now, and has been for some time. And so it was hard for him to kind of learn a new profession. And my mom started drinking really heavily and became an alcoholic. And our family just kind of went on this downward spiral. We had all these problems, and I couldn't help but attribute it to the fact that, you know, this future that I'd always imagined had gone haywire thanks to my family. And you know, again, I'm only 12 years old, so I really don't understand why this has happened, and I'm really upset about it. And so I decided to kind of just throw all my energy into school. Like I was just going to have to work my way into a great school and make some money on my own, because I'm not going to have the illustrious Karp motors to run. And so I did that, and then when I went to college, but you know, years had gone by, and kind of everything had compounded in my family. You know, the problems were on my family, and I was on financial aid, and it just got to a point where, you know, my family was sacrificing everything they had just to keep me in school, and it didn't seem to make sense. So I dropped out of school, and of course, I again am thinking about this. I haven't really spoken to my grandmother for like, you know, 5 years, and I didn't communicate with my family then at all, and I was pretty bitter about it, you know, and trying to figure out like how I'm going to go forward with my life and what I'm going to do with it. And so, let's see, what else is important? So I came, when I worked really hard to pay off my loans because I didn't finish my degree, you know, and so I'm working 80 to 90 hours a week trying to pay off these loans, and finally I do, and when I did, I ended up out here thanks to a couple of different coincidences. And like Beth and Arline said, I put everything kind of into the literary scene and showed up, and I videotape as many events as I can get to and blog about them. And so the internet and my computer specifically are really important to me. It's like the one crucial possession that I own. And my computer was breaking down, and I'd had it for 5 or 6 years, and I couldn't really pay rent, you know, much less eat or you know, replace my computer. And so I was like, well, what am I going to do? And I was freaking out because things were going really well for me here in a sense, you know, and I was doing what I loved, and people were helping me out with it, and it was just really amazing. But it was like, well, now my computer's going to break, and I'm going to have to go back to Savannah, and, you know, then what will I do? And so, kind of desperate, I called my grandmother, and because she's the only person in my family who has any money and could help me out, and I asked her, and I never asked her for anything, and you know, I asked her, I said, look, I have money to pay the monthly payments, but I can't, no one will finance this for me because, you know, all my credit cards are maxed out, and I can even pay 2 monthly payments, you know, if you could just put the money down. And kind of without thinking at all, she told me that she was going to buy the computer for me, and immediately she said, you know, I'm really sorry about everything that happened. I never meant anybody any harm, and no one did, and, you know, I hope that this shows how I really feel about things. And it was really overwhelming to me because she didn't say it with any animosity, and we never talked about it at all, you know, and so it was just this moment for me where it was like, thanks so much, I can continue to be where I want and do what I'm doing, and, you know, she doesn't really have an idea, like, how happy I am out here, or, like, how involved I am in things that I believe in, and I guess she actually did, you know that, or sense it, because she said, you know, I'm really proud of you, and am happy to help you do what you want to do, and I am just really happy to be here, and I'm proud to be a part of Porchlight. It really makes me happy. I want to thank Beth and Arline for doing this every month. This is, I feel as much family here, like, as I do anywhere, because my family is 3,000 miles away. And just one last thing is that if my brother does ever make it out here and you see me with him, he's bigger than me and has the hair that I just cut off. Don't tell him this story because he doesn't yet know that my grandma bought me the computer. Thank you, guys.